So welcome everyone to another time here with Mantras for Peace, and today it's a delight and an honor to have my friend Mari Smith with us. Hi Mari.
Hi Anandra, I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. So I'll just say a few words about you and let you kind of take the intro on into your own terms. But
Okay.
Mari is one of the top Facebook marketing experts in the world. And I've known her personally for a couple of years because we have some mutual friends. And I'm just really delighted that you're going to take the time to talk with us about how to use social media to amplify our voice as an instrument of peace. So maybe would you just tell a little bit more about your background and establish why we're talking to you?
Absolutely, yeah. So I call myself the premier Facebook marketing expert for 13 years now. I started in 2007. Before that was in internet marketing. And they often refer to me as the queen of Facebook. So I didn't give myself that title, but I kind of like it. It's playful and I don't mind it having a British, Scottish background. So I quite like the queen. I have a little tiara on my desk here somewhere.
Oh, would you move on? That'd be great.
I've got very short shorts on, so I'm not going to stand up, but I think it's over there. But yeah, gosh, in a nutshell, see if I can tell you my background super fast. So usually when I start speaking, when people haven't heard me, I always a little bit of an accent, although it's quite flattened out, comes and goes depending on who I speak to. But I was born in Canada to Scottish parents, spent the first 12 years of my life in Canada. And then parents got divorced in 78 when I was 12. Dad got custody of the 5 girls. I'm second oldest. Moved to Scotland. I lived there for 20 years. Then I emigrated to San Diego, California in 1999. And so I'm Scandifornian, Scottish, Canadian, Californian. And I feel so blessed to really, I often think of myself as a global citizen. And I'm so fortunate to be able to have like 2 passports and a green card. And I was raised in a very small Quaker community. My father and mother were practicing Quakers. My dad taught at the Quaker school. And although I was born near Toronto, when I was 2, the family, my dad and my older sister, my mom, we all moved to a very, very rural part of British Columbia, Canada. And we had like dirt roads. Nearest town of 10,000 is like 70 miles away. And so that's the background that I grew up in. And the Quakers have this mantra or just like a motto, I guess. It's like you build your house by the side of the road and you be a friend to man. And that's really kind of instilled in me where I love the Quaker values. And I like to bring those to social media. So like throughout my entire career, starting at quite a young age. I left school quite young, got right into the workforce. My dad never had any money, and I couldn't wait to get out and start earning my own money. I've always had these 2 parallel loves, and that's my love of technology, love computers and the internet and pressing buttons and things happen. And then I love people, relationships, what makes people tick, personality analysis, all of that. So when social media kind of fell in my lap in 2007, it was just like this marriage made in heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, my 2 loves, my 2 passions in one industry, in one package. And so my enthusiasm and passion for social media in general and Facebook in particular has really never waned, never wavered in the 13 years of being a Facebook expert. Even despite all of the awful things that have happened through Facebook or as a result of Facebook or the negative PR that they have and the bad decisions they've made, it's like it's a vehicle. And this is where I choose to relate to Facebook in particular as a vehicle through which we can reach others. And if we focus on the good aspects of it and we model good behavior, if you will. I don't even know if I would call it good behavior, but we just like modeling the way that you want others, hopefully, to kind of like a ripple effect, like Gandhi says, right, to be the change you want to see in the world. So, but I think the emotions and tensions are running really high across all the social platforms, and it's so easy to get triggered. It's also so easy to see content on there and make quick judgments. And I really encourage people to develop those soft skills to remember that you're seeing, when someone makes a post on Facebook or wherever, you're catching a tiny little glimpse, one little snapshot of what might be happening in their world right there. You don't know the person fully unless you really do, but I think that it's so important to have some compassion, some empathy, some understanding, and also to be discerning about what you choose to engage with. Right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what I'm pulling out of that is a deep Quaker value of listening. I mean, I'm not a Quaker, but I have had some Quaker friends over the years, and what I always admired about my Quaker friends and what they tell me happens in the meetings is that everybody goes, there's a sense of listening. Like there's a sense of quiet inner listening awareness that is, a primary practice within that community. And what I'm hearing you say is that despite all of the, everything that Facebook is not, and all of the tensions that are high right now, like really don't judge immediately and polarize your own awareness, like just be open and curious. And I think that's a very mantric principle, like, that's very aligned.
It's so true. It reminded me of something. One of my favorite people to follow on Facebook is a friend of mine right here in San Diego, Daniel Schmachtenberger, wonderful name. He's a absolute brilliant deep thinker, futurist. He's been so active throughout this pandemic and helping people to just think differently and rally people together and to just come up with solutions and to really change paradigms. And one of the things that I learned from him not long ago was, and this is a term that's out there, when you're having a debate, two people are having a debate, they call it like I might not articulate this properly, but there's like the straw man, but then he calls this thing called a steel man. I believe it's called a steel man, where you purposefully find people who have a diametrically opposed viewpoint to yours. And you entertain that. What if their perspective was true? What if that complete opposite? Can I hold both? Can I separate my mortal mind and go, oh gosh, this could be true and that could be true? And what am I going to choose to put my attention on? And like you were saying about using your voice for peace. So, for example, I will watch my feed and I will see people going on major rants. Some of them get like really heated, or maybe somebody doesn't think it's that heated. They're just putting themselves out there in an area that's bothering them, and they're calling for peace and for people to wake up. And I'm like thinking, and again, no judgment, right? Just be able to try to observe without judgment and go, oh, hello, person. You're doing the very thing that you're calling people out for, just by the fact of infusing the message with some angst.
Yeah.
And I have found for me, one of the best mantras that I've had for probably a decade before I hit the send button, the post, the publish, the update, wherever it might be, whether it's a text, an email, public, private, I ask myself, what is my deepest intent? What's my deepest intent? And it's such a great question to ask oneself to keep your ego in check, because
Mm,
when you find, if you're reading something, especially if it's something you know, or maybe something you don't know, but it's like a matter or a subject that's really close to your heart, you go,
mm,
hook, oh, that's not right, or get riled up and you want to get your opinion across. And so then you go to start typing a comment and you're like, wait a minute, what's my deepest intent? Oh, my deepest intent is to show that person they're wrong and that I'm right. No, delete. That's not, don't even publish it, so I think that
mm.
so many people are, I don't know, I just feel like what technology, particularly social media, but technology has kind of cultivated this sense of anonymity and almost like false bravado, where people can just show up, type what they feel like in the comfort of their home or their garage or wherever they are, and and not feel like there's any consequences and not be responsible for how that is landing out there.
And say a whole bunch of things that they would never say if you were standing right in front of them.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's a really good rule of thumb too. Like when you if you wouldn't say it to someone's face, maybe it's not a good idea to type it.
right. You know what, Nandra? Way back in the day, on one of the books I wrote a book on relationship marketing in 2011, and I always had this three-part rule, as well as the what's my deepest intent. Another way you can look at it is go, okay, before you put anything out there, you want to ask yourself, would I be comfortable with this thing, what I'm about to post, blown up into giant life-size letters on a billboard, a major billboard? Would
Mm,
I be comfortable with this being found? That's number one. Number two is, would I be comfortable with this being found in a Google search in years to come? And the
mhm.
third one is the mom test. Would I be comfortable and happy and proud for my mom to read this?
Yeah.
Whether your mom's on this side or the other, it's like, and if you can't say, a resounding yes to all through, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't belong online.
Yeah. I think we forget that because the turnover is so high, what you're getting is a fresh feed every moment,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
think we forget that it does stay in the everything that we say stays in the archive. You
yeah.
know, in in the terminology, Sanskrit terminology of sound, we have it's called the Akash,
Yeah,
and like every thought that has ever thunk, every word that has ever spoken reverberates.
yeah,
It resounds in the Akash, the record of the Akash.
right.
And I think maybe we don't look at social media in the same way, but it is literally there. Like someone, even if you delete it, someone could have screenshotted that.
Yeah,
Like,
in a split
that
second.
lots of politicians get in trouble for those. So they try to,
They
try to,
do. They
you know,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying. It's very true. And I think even connecting that to just a whole spiritual aspect was a big part of the work that you do, is if every thought and every word that we put out there, our dear mutual friend Christopher, which by the way, it's been 5 years that we've known one another, believe it or not, time flies.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Mhm.
Christopher and I will have these conversations where I'll be like, I say to him, thoughts are things, be careful what you're saying. And he's that wicked sense of humor. Sometimes he likes to just make a real funny joke, and I'll see him, oh, be careful because thoughts are things, and even said in joke, so it's like, even when he and I are just joking around on a text message, I still carry that essence of like, gee, it's like an accountability to God or the universe or to my own.
Mhm.
How am I contributing to the peace of the planet? If
Mm.
I am even sending a private text message to a loved one that has some jarring words in it, even in joke, or I'm just on a little rant or something. So I think it's really about having that incredible mindfulness as a practice, as a ritual, as a way of life. That's not just social media, it's how you show up. It's being kind to the person in the line in front of you, or the people that are having to wear masks all day, every day in the grocery stores to serve us. And, we have to pop it on for an hour while we do our shopping, and people whining about that. But it's like just having that kindness and compassion and understanding. And I don't know, I feel like there is a window of opportunity happening with this global pandemic, where we're being invited to really level up and to a place of, obviously, evolving human consciousness is one way to put it. In a little more esoteric terms, it might not be understandable to the mainstream, but in terms of practical terms, how can I, as Eckhart Tolle teaches, just be in this moment, be in the now, look at everything that I'm thankful for right now. And man alive, my heart goes out to everybody who's severely impacted financially, or they've losing their business, or there's such a rise in domestic violence. Sadhguru, who I know you know well as well. I love to listen to Sadhguru's darshans. He did them daily for the first 40 days of lockdown, and then he went to weekly on Sundays. He was just saying the other Sunday that the distress calls, presumably in India, the distress calls of people really feeling in trouble and calling helplines, hotlines, has gone up 1,000%.
Mm.
I started crying when he said that, because I'm like, these are people who are really hurting, and the people that are hurting them are hurting. And I just feel like social media is this way for us to lean in and communicate and connect more deeply with one another, to lend a helping hand. This Sadhguru is like, 5.5 million followers on YouTube. He would never have been able to do that, 30 years ago. And so how can we utilize these channels to give this uplifting message and give hope to people, and to reach out and help people to take responsibility to heal themselves and to be, better versions of themselves?
Mm. It's so fun. I really didn't know exactly where this interview was going to go, but I knew that we needed to do it, and I'm so glad, because this is just exactly, it's better than what I had imagined that you would say, like really so aligned with the project that we're doing here, which is, to learn how to use your voice as an instrument for peace. And I think one of the things that gets to be so dangerous for us concerned people on the spiritual path is this idea that we have the right way, or that we know what's best, or, it's a very, I'll use the term filter bubble. Like we're many people that I know, myself included, kind of have had this idea that, oh, well, I'm going to do this good thing and it's going to go out there in the world, and then I don't even have contact with people who have diametrically opposed views. Right. So I was wondering if you could shed some light on the Facebook algorithm, and how did we get to be in the filter bubbles? And I mean, obviously people can Google that if they want to find out the details, but what are your recommendations for how we can specifically build those relationships with people on the other side of the imaginary fence?
Beautiful. Yeah. And again, I'm reminded of something that Daniel Schmachtenberger was saying, just that similar talk, where you could totally choose proactively to go to Facebook and purposefully put on see first. There's a little hover over the following button. It's on both personal profiles and on pages, business pages. And you set them to see first. Now you can only put about 20. I think 20 is the max to put on see first. And even then, Facebook doesn't show you all 20 all the time. You maybe see 4, 5, 6 at any given time at the top of your feed. But if it works for you, for me, I have chosen not to do this. But if somebody was really wanted to challenge themselves, maybe just do it for a short period of time, a few days or a week,
Mm.
and put on see first people whose opinions and whose mm, and you be discerning. You don't want to just feed your brain with or put stuff in your consciousness that's just really awful. But someone who's in putting something intelligent but opposite what you would tend to choose. Because you're absolutely right calling it a bubble as a filter bubble. And people can Google, there's a TED talk, a wonderful TED talk. And I think that's even a book. I forget the guy's name right now, but he wrote a whole body of work on the
Yeah.
filter bubble. It happens on Facebook. It happens on Google searches. You can have two people side by side do a Google search and they'll find different things. Because
Mm.
it's all personalized. It's all algorithmically controlled on the Facebook feed. They have 100,000 points or weights that go into deciding what content you'll see. There's almost 3 billion users on the whole family of apps. The big four is Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. Now, Messenger and WhatsApp are more on the messaging side, of course, but on Facebook and Instagram, it's about 2.6 billion people. And every one of those people sees a different version of the newsfeed depending on what they have chosen to interact with, whose profile they comment on, what videos they watch, what groups they belong to, what pages they've liked, so on and so forth. And then Facebook just has this gathered up this kind of like dossier of interests that they think they know you better than your spouse or your own self knows you. And so what you always see in the newsfeed is it's externally decided for you. So you could decide, all right, I'm going to get real specific and I'm going to hide these people or I'm going to unfollow or I'm going to mute them for 30 days. And I'm going to put these people on see first and just make yourself see a very different version of the newsfeed for a short time if you want. But then I would even say, like, what is the intent of that exercise? Is it to expand your mind? Is it to get yourself out of your bubble so you can see the world beyond what your own beliefs are? It's there's almost like I feel like there's a portal here. I feel like there's the world that you're describing, which is those on the spiritual path or whatever path who are in a bubble. Everybody's in a bubble, and then there's another world which is not in your bubble. What if there's like this portal between the two where you could go, I want to see what's over there in that other world, but I still want to be discerning. Don't just turn the faucet on and just see complete garbage that impacts my immune system.
Yeah, because from what I understand, it's also really easy for that bubble to just keep narrowing and narrowing into like a radicalization of one's beliefs, and so the idea of then how do you choose those 20 people that to see first? Whose voices? That would be a really conscious, very interesting exercise to choose whose voices you want to see first.
Yeah. Well, I'd put all your spiritual teachers and your favorite thought leaders, like I like Dr. Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden I have on See First, Heart Math Institute. It's like, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. And I also have all the Facebook leaders. I have Mark Zuckerberg's on See First, Sheryl Sandberg on See First. And so I have this blend, of like the technical as well as the kind of the heart and soul and spirit in my feed. But at the same time, I find myself, I will get caught up in that just mindless scrolling. And it is
I'm glad to hear you still do that too, Mari.
Drives me crazy at times. I'm like, Mari, what are you doing? And it's such an epidemic in a way where so many of us, because we're psychologically trained, like these apps, every little nuance, like the little red bell and the thing that jingles and the little, even if you have all your notifications turned off and there's nothing audible, but you open the app up and there's a new thing. Oh, somebody's liked. Oh, so you get this little hit of dopamine and you go, okay, I'll go down this rabbit hole. Maybe there's another one. They've got us trained well, like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately, to your question about how to control the algorithms in the newsfeed, it's like, what do you want? At the end of the day, it's up to you. I mean, somebody just emailed me this morning in reply to my newsletter. I wrote just a check in on how's everybody doing, and this one girl wrote back and she said, I just chose, I'm off Facebook. It's not for me anymore. I'm going to just use Instagram. And I'm like, you do know they're owned by Facebook. But she wasn't so much a political stance as just the experience. She felt like people were just the content that you see on Instagram is, you can get quite a bit more specific about just seeing more uplifting, or it's visual. It's all visual, right? Videos and images, and you don't see quite so much of that bubble where people are just going on their rants and their raves, or
Yeah, it's not quite as argumentative, or there's not as many words flying back and forth.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but like I said, ultimately, it's what do you want? Are you using it for personal? Are you using it for business? I've always said, to me, social media, I use it 100% for business. One time years ago, somebody was cute. I was in this mastermind, and he's like, Maria, this was on Twitter, and he's like, I've been studying your tweets, and I know what your formula is. And I forget the numbers. It was something like, you're 35% business and 65% personal, or whatever the ratio was. And I just burst out laughing. I'm like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, It says on every social channel, I'm 100% business, because personal, I'll do by phone, by text, by private message, in person. That to me is personal. That's really, it's private. But then I will weave aspects of my personal life into the content, obviously, that I share, like most of us, especially like on stories, Instagram stories, Facebook stories. But I'm always thinking, again, with my deepest intent, I'm like, I'm representing myself. Is this the way I want my brand perceived? Will this be, attractive to people? And not like I'm editing and putting out this edited version of myself. I'm pretty much a WYSIWYG person, right? What you see is what you get. But I'm just mindful, about what is going out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I follow you for a long time now, more than 5 years or more, and and you do have a real. It feels like you put a lot of personal stuff out there, and that you share little snippets of your life, but yeah, you're also always very professional. And I now that I know your secret your secret thought process behind it, um, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we could touch people's lives by opening up and being a little vulnerable, real, genuine, authentic. These are words that we've used for 15 years in the industry, but people can tell. There's this great line in the Seth Godin book called Tribes, years back now, and he said that people can smell the agenda of a leader. So if you're, you can see, and it's just important. People put stuff out there, and they're like, I don't know. I just got like a marketing piece in the mail, and somebody was texting me going, "Hey, I want you part of my tribe," and a personal text, and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds exciting." And then I get the thing in the mail, and it's just like this big old pitch, and I'm just like, it didn't make me feel good. I didn't feel
Mm,
personal, or this. I felt disappointed, and so I was like, I never want to have people feel that way with my
mm,
marketing or
yeah,
personal.
yeah. You want to feel like you're being embraced into something that you want, like that there's consent and mutuality in the relationship there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I have one of my I just had a flash there that one of the slides that I have in many of my talks is that technology unquestionably is moving at warp speed, right? We can barely catch up and keep up. AI, artificial intelligence, and the AR and the VR and all that good stuff. Technology, woo, dizzying. But human beings have not changed all that much. Yeah, we've evolved. We're a more evolved version than we were, I don't know, 100 years ago, I hope.
Well,
But at the
the jury
core,
might be out on that sometimes.
I know, right? But at the core, because we're emotional creatures, we want to know that we matter, that we're important, that we belong, that we're seen. One of my favorite words is grok, Grok. Is like to grok something or to grok someone, to like fully see them and get them. And that's a
Mm.
part of what I love to be able to do in my own interactions, even online. And one way you can do that is to use people's first names in a natural way. And a person's first name is the sweetest sounding word in their entire vocabulary.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I love that. And really, especially right now in the midst of the pandemic, which doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon, right now, July 14th, 2020, we have, for better or worse, a lot of our social needs are met only through social media for many people on the planet.
Yeah.
Who are isolated or you know self quarantining for whatever reason, and social distancing. So I think this time is a even more important time to, like you say, lean into using the tool of social media in the way that we want to be, to reflect who we want to be.
Yeah, so true. It's interesting because I noticed a couple of people early on, like early March, mid March, when this really started to take take over the world, was that it's not so much social distancing as physical, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
physical
Yeah.
social distancing, because as soon as we say social distancing, and then people are like, oh my God, I'm not getting my social needs met. And there's definitely a way to do that. And I've had so many, like one of my dearest friends, Debbie Adea, and she and I have these every other week. We have a girlfriend date, Zoom date, virtual, and she lives here in San Diego. And after 3 months or something, I'm like, okay, let's do a social distance lunch. She comes to my house. I make her brunch, and we just get that wonderful in person interaction very carefully, And so I think that you need to tune into yourself and fill the needs through social media, but be so careful that you're not having all those needs, the friendship, the camaraderie, the interaction, the conversations, so when I see people and have a conversation with them in person, it's like refreshing. Whoa, you're not just a voice on the other end of the phone, or like you're not sitting on my computer screen.
Yeah, but it is amazing, really, how satisfying it is and can be,
Yeah.
because of what we're feeling is the feeling of connection is something that happens inside of us. We're getting that serotonin and oxytocin in our biochemical, vehicle, and whatever stimulates that is whatever works. And it's not the same as touch. It's not the same, but it is quite. For me, it's been really eye-opening to see how well it actually can work
Yeah.
to do all the stuff that we thought we would need to do in person, online.
You're
So
absolutely right.
whether we like it or not, here we are in this.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like all of us souls on the planet here today, we signed up for this on some level, on some other plane, on some other lifetime. We were like, okay, that sounds like a good time for me to come in and do my thing. It's sign me up. So it was like, oh crap. It's like, then you forget.
Good sign up. Yeah.
But anyway, one thing I thought would just like, I know we're going to wrap up here, but I thought that a lovely brief story that would just kind of sum all this up is part of my passion of what you were just talking about that using the technology to fill some of those social connection, friendship, camaraderie needs is, I mentioned earlier when my parents divorced in 78 when I was 12. And my dad had always stayed at home, and he was a baker, and he loved kids. He just absolutely doted on his family. And he just preferred to be a parent, whereas my mom was different. She went out to work, And so when they decided to get divorced and Dad was moving back to Scotland, he got custody of all the 5 girls, as I mentioned. The part I didn't mention, though, is my mother stayed in Canada, eventually remarried, but I did not see her for 10 years, from age 12 to 22. And that was 78 to 98. No, excuse me, 78 to 88. And so the only interaction I had with my mom was through letters. And the letters would take a long time. They take weeks, in between. And then you don't always turn right around and write another one. So, and I would keep these little letters and I would put them in a little shoebox and I'd read them over again. And I'd wait for the mailman to come. And once in a while, my dad would let me do an international call. But back in the day, long distance international call is like the old dial-up phone. But the passion and enthusiasm I have for technology in today's world is very much rooted in that experience I had in my younger years where there was no tech to connect. And I miss my mother dreadfully, and I just think back, gosh, imagine growing up as a young teenage girl in Scotland and doing like a FaceTime with my mom. Hey, Mom, look who I'm dating now.
Yeah, or you're putting on your makeup and your mom's there in the bathroom with you. Or
I know. So it has that real kind of like, I just feel it in my cells where exactly what you're just talking about, where now because of the pandemic, we're absolutely leaning into this technology to create more these deeper connections, and connections that are hopefully as deep as we can in order to fulfill that in-person need for now until we can safely get back together.
Yeah. So I so much appreciate that sense of appreciation that you have for the technology, and I think that thank you for that reminder. I used to have to write letters back and forth with my mom too. When my parents were divorced as well, and they had shared custody. So she would, when I was with my dad, she would drop every morning before she went to work. She went to work before I went to school. She would put a letter in the mailbox at my dad's house. And so the first thing I would do when I wake up would be to go get a little love note from my mom.
Oh, that's
yeah, because we didn't have, she couldn't call at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't have cell phones to text message each other or anything. So, yeah.
I didn't know that about you. That's really special.
That's really lovely. Well, thank you so much for your time and just, for bringing so much. I feel like just this real conscious intelligence and positivity and your feminine grace to being the queen of Facebook marketing. I love it.
Thank you so much, Anandra. It's truly my pleasure. I have my moments, like I say, like us all. We have our moments, but I do my best to bring my best self forward. So.
I think you really shine it. So I'm super grateful. Thank you so much, dear.
Good to connect. Thank you.